There is something every aspiring lawyer learns very early on in training. When you have a witness with credibility issues, and in the case of Donald Trump's hush money trial, that means Michael Cohen, you bolster his testimony with other, more credible witnesses. Cohen's name was brought up more than 80 times today, while David Pecker took the stand to talk about the National Enquirer's catch and kill practices. Just moments ago, Pecker said this about discussing potential catch and kill stories. All my conversations about this were with Michael Cohen. Joining us now, Paul Butler, former federal prosecutor, professor at Georgetown School of Law, and an MSNBC legal analyst. Danny Savalos is a criminal defense attorney and also an MSNBC legal analyst. So, Paul, when talking about the Karen McDougal story specifically, Pecker said, quote, I was speaking to him, meaning Cohen, prior to this, probably a couple of times a week. When this subject came up and this issue came up, I spoke to him much more frequently, almost every day, sometimes a couple of times a day. Is that one way to use Pecker's testimony to essentially bolster Cohen's credibility, or at least punctuate the point this was a guy who was running things for Trump?
Totally, Chris. So Michael Cohen, as we all know, has mad credibility issues. Not only did he lie and plead guilty to lying in the hearing where he pled guilty to lying, the judge later accused him of lying in that hearing. And so prosecutors are actually used to witnesses like this. The people who know how the crime went down are often down and dirty with the crime. So what do? You corroborate. You corroborate with receipts. So here the prosecutors have text messages, telephone logs, and emails, and they've got live witnesses like David Pecker, who says, I was talking to Michael Cohen a whole lot. I could corroborate a lot of what he says. And David Pecker doesn't have Michael Cohen's mad issues.
So Pecker admitted he would publish negative stories about Trump's opponents and alert Michael Cohen when he came across information about women. The prosecutor asked, quote, how, if at all, did Mr. Trump react to your suggestion that you continue to do that? David Pecker responded, he was pleased. Michael Cohen was pleased by the way I was going to handle these issues. Danny Savalos, there's another point at which they're talking about this unsubstantiated story from a doorman about an affair that Trump did not have with a housekeeper. But he said, what did you do with this story about an illegitimate child? The prosecutor asking Pecker. I immediately called Michael Cohen and told him exactly what I was told. Why is this important?
Trump is not really on trial for the doorman story or the Karen McDougal story, but the state, the people are using this to set up the existence of a relationship. And that relationship had a very specific purpose. And here's how it was executed. I would pick up the phone. I would call Michael Cohen. We would talk about it. These are all things that are going to diffuse the defense's really two-pronged defense. Number one, I didn't know what was going on. I had nothing to do with it, that those were other people. And the other defense, which is basically going to be, they're all lying, they're all making it up. And Paul makes a very good point. When you have a problem like Michael Cohen, that only becomes a real problem if Michael Cohen and Donald Trump had conversations on a deserted island. They didn't. Involved also was David Pecker. There will be documents involved. So even when the smoke clears, if the jury concludes that Michael Cohen is this lying liar and he can't be trusted, then the people can point to all of this other evidence that actually bolsters Cohen's testimony, that substantiates it and makes it really unlikely, increasingly unlikely, I should say, that either all of these people got together and they all came up with the same lie together. That becomes increasingly difficult to believe. That's why, and I've been saying this for a few days now, David Pecker would be and has proven to be probably the people's star witness. And I know I'm saying that prematurely because he's been the first witness, but it's been pretty compelling. And you know what else they did really well? It's entertaining. The jury has to be listening with a lot of attention because I sure am. This is interesting subject matter. The whole unit world, the seedy world of the catch and kill and the National Enquirer and how they got stories and the checkbook journalism. It's really interesting. And the people know that when you keep a jury interested, they're listening, they're retaining information.
All right. So another part of this that leads us to, Paul, is number one, if you have a witness with credibility problems, you have other witnesses to back him up. But the second part that Danny just mentioned is documentation. I'm looking at our recounting of it. For example, People's Exhibit 154 is a source document with AMI letterhead, which is an agreement. You go down a little further, People's Exhibit 164, there's another document, which can be boring, a lot of paper, right? Unless, as Danny says, it's backing up something that's a little more compelling.
And this is super compelling. So prosecutors have explained why they think of this as an election interference case rather than a boring false documents case. It's a crime in New York to conspire to promote or prevent the election of any other person by unlawful means. So the prosecutors are saying that falsifying the business records, that was all about the campaign. According to the prosecutors, it wasn't about protecting Trump's wife, Melania, from stories about his alleged infidelities. This was all about getting him elected. And again, business records, it sounds a little tired, boring, trite, but the jury heard so many juicy bits today. So Trump and Michael Cohen asked what he and his magazine could do. They asked Pecker what he and his magazine could do to help the campaign. Pecker said that he would be the campaign's eyes and ears. That's how this catch and kill happened. According to Pecker, Michael Cohen said that the boss, that was Donald Trump, would be very pleased if he killed the story that Mr. Trump had a child with a woman who was not his wife. That story wasn't true. And Pecker also testified that the National Enquirer would generate negative stories about Trump's campaign rivals. So, Chris, I always knew not to trust the National Enquirer, that it was a tabloid that you couldn't believe. But, man, this is really riveting testimony.
Hey, everyone. MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.